Year 1 content has been made irrelevant with the launch of The Taken King in terms of gearing and incentive. While most MMO players are very familiar with this sequence of events, well, non-MMO players are not and have constantly been seeking ways to make said content relevant again via incentive. I have no idea how difficult it would be to revise year 1 endgame content to make it so it would be relevant in year 2, nor do I know if that is something Bungie would want to have in their plan for the game. Odds are, neither do you, and I'm sure if it was as easy as updating some values on some enemies and things of that nature, we'd probably have that stuff in the game. I think bringing up year 1 raids is a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation for Bungie. You could bring up the year 1 raids, but how long are people going to play them? A couple of weeks? How long will nostalgia keep you as a player entertained, especially right now in this content drought? I don't have the answer to that, but I imagine that's something Bungie is worried about. Then, of course, you'll have all the people complaining that Bungie is wasting their time balancing out old content instead of making new content, which is a valid complaint. Would you want Bungie to take away time from making a new raid in order to rebalance an old one? Personally, I would like a new raid as opposed to an updated older one, and I have a feeling that a month into the old raids being updated, most other people would too. How would rewards work? Are you going to reward 320 gear from these older raids if they are updated? Is it fair to do at this point? I imagine the year 1 raids were designed around year 1 leveling systems. What if they can't balance the raid in an ideal way? Would you expect them to fix all the bugs that may or may not exist? Fixing Crota's End so that it couldn't be soloed, even though I don't think it would be able to be soloed without G-Horn? Are we throwing Prison of Elders in there as well? Would you expect improvements to be made to something like Prison of Elders? These are all things that would take time to fix, specifically time that the raid team might want to be using working on future raids. What if Vault of Glass starts breaking again? The community isn't going to be happy with that, so that's time spent fixing that. These are all questions to the community might be a simple yes or no, but to the dev team are difficult things to solve for whatever those reasons might be. This is not to say that I am anti-year 1 raids coming back or anything, because I'm not. I would be more than happy if they returned, but I'm just trying to play a little devil's advocate. Now let's say all of this could happen and could happen reasonably. How would it? How could it? How should it be done? I think that as long as people's time spent in King's Fall was respected, that being able to get updated gear from VOG or Crota's End would be acceptable. I think that an interesting idea that respects both the player's time in King's Fall and Bungie's maybe desire to keep year 2 content the go-to as well, if that is their desire, is that Vault of Glass and Crota's End would only be able to drop gear as high as the current light of an item that you got from King's Fall. So if you're fully decked out in King's Fall gear, 320 and all that stuff, then the other 2 raids will drop up to 320 light gear. They could apply it by a piece-by-piece basis, so if you have a 317 helm, the highest helm you could get is 317, or they could just do it globally. If you're 315 light, then the highest drops you'll see would be 315. This way, King's Fall can still end up being the place to go to for the best gear, but VOG and Crota's End could be viable alternatives to that gear if you wanted it. Obviously, if the raid weapons were to return to year 2, then some nerfs would likely be in order. You wouldn't see elements on the weapons, for starters. Vision of Confluence would probably go down to something like 17 shots in the chamber, another example. I just think that as long as time in King's Fall is respected, then things would be fine. Alternatively, they could introduce a monthly challenge mode featuring older content and give out emblems or shaders for completing said challenges. They could have nightfall modifiers on them, they could have custom rules implemented, they could pretty much do whatever they wanted to with it. Bungie could give out an emblem based on how many challenges you complete over a 6-month time span. It doesn't matter. I think bringing them back as a monthly activity would be a cool way to do it, in addition to dropping said gear to incentivize continued playthroughs. Once again, I'll go back to an earlier point. How long would nostalgia be able to keep people's attention, especially people who are already geared out and moving on? Because with zero incentive, the answer has basically been none. With incentive, I think we'd see a couple of weeks of high activity and then it would probably just fall off again, which is probably why Bungie hasn't bothered with it besides other reasons. So that's all I have to say on year 1 raids coming back. I think that if it were easy to implement, that Bungie probably would have done it or would be considering doing it. Maybe they still are and we just don't know. The truth is that we don't know how hard it is to bring up the old raids to year 2 levels. And on top of all that work, that Bungie has no idea if it would even be worth doing because after a couple of weeks, we might not even run it anymore. Add on top of that, any dev time spent revitalizing old raids may take away time from new content, and while year 1 raids might be the community desire of the month, people want new content most of all. I think it would be a real shame if Bungie worked on getting the year 1 raids updated and fixed, only to have them not be played after a couple of weeks of them being released. That's just me though. I know this is a perspective that not a lot of people really like hearing, this is how game development actually works, this is actually really hard to do or very time consuming side of things, because I know most people don't care about how hard things are to make and they just want it, Once again, just trying to play a little devil's advocate. Let me know your thoughts on some of these arguments. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.